Hello, welcome to the show. This is Emotional Badass, where Moxie meets mindful. I'm your host, Nikki Eisenhower, life coach and psychotherapist. And on today's episode, I'm discussing empaths and emotion. Hello, all of you out there. Welcome, new listeners. If you're new to the show, if you're new to my work, I'm here to try to shine light and understanding on being a highly sensitive person to help highly sensitive people and trauma survivors have more ease and more peace. So I am an empath. An empath is a person with a more finely tuned nervous system that observes or picks up on more sensory information than the average person with an average nervous system. Current scientific study and research is suggesting that empaths may have more mirror neurons. Those are the very mirror neurons that when we're looking at a baby and we stick out our tongue, that baby reflects and sticks out their tongue. It's how we learn. It's how we take in information. Some of us have more mirror neurons. Some of us have less, just like everything in the human condition. There are real pros and cons to being an empath. Positive or light feeling moves through me and actually moves me. A baby's smile, the early morning light of a sunrise can move me to happy tears. Then the awareness that I am a person in the world with limited days, limited mornings, and the sunrise, this light, or that twinkly smile of that stranger baby in the store, they're all fleeting moments. You might hear it in my voice right now. I almost teared up. I'm often moved by the beauty of this, the idea of this, the depth of gratitude I can feel, like 4th of July fireworks going off inside of my body, simply because of the way my mind and body and spirit notice life. It's spectacular when I'm in the positivity of being a highly sensitive person and an empath. Now, negative or dark feeling, it also moves through me and it moves me. Consider for this conversation that I may be more like a wild animal in how I sense than a domesticated modern human. I sense if someone is safe or dangerous, like a deer sensing if a predator is in their environment. A complication of being an empath or a highly sensitive person. An empath is just like a very, very highly sensitive person, like the peak of that high sensitivity pyramid. But at the peak of my severe post-traumatic stress symptoms in my 20s and early 30s, I was constantly overwhelmed and raw by the combination of PTSD hypervigilance from trauma on top of high sensitivity as an empath. Now, if you Google empaths right now, you will find what I think of as made up names of all different kinds of empaths. I am less impressed with our obsession with labels and categories, naming things as if the healing is available inside of the label. When it's just a bit of information, it's just a descriptor. An oversimplified explanation is that a highly sensitive person is highly attuned to sensory stimuli. Sight, sound, touch, taste even. Remember to find Emotional Badass wherever you get your podcasts and make sure to hit that subscribe and follow button to get more videos like this in your feed and to help us grow. Highly sensitive people desire not being overstimulated by our objectively overstimulating modern world. It's a dilemma that we have been dancing with all of our lives, whether we knew how to name it or not, and always will as long as we're alive. An empath is very often such a sensory being with an additional ability to empathically feel out and pick up on different empathic information from other people in our human tribe. Now, I am a strong emotional and mental empath. Super woo-woo people would say I am clairvoyant. Likely that's the most woo-woo thing you will hear me claim. This means that I sense what others are feeling and thinking. And because of my career as a counselor for almost 2 full decades, this is my 19th year being a full-time counselor and coach, I've been able to test out my empathic skills and qualities because of the nature of this work, of having a session hour after hour, of leading groups with multiple people and energies. My clients will very often stop in a session and ask, how did I know something about them? Or how did I know to ask a certain question? Or people I have a close personal relationship with might just stop and say, damn, your intuition is on point. I also feel in a way that I can't fully explain, but I can feel when other people are thinking of me. I've been able to do my own experimenting and gain my own experience over the years, figuring out my own empathic qualities. Early in my career, I'd catch myself thinking of a client. And at first I'd think, oh, maybe I should reach out to them. And sometimes within minutes, I'd have an email, a phone call, or a text from that person. This has happened thousands of times, if not 10,000 times in my life at this point. This is a huge data set for me. It's a lot of information for me to be able to glean how my sensitivity works, how it doesn't work. This empath that I am, this quality of being an empath, it's sometimes a helpful and beautiful gift, and sometimes it feels like an energetic burden. I really can feel people thinking of me, and then they reach out. If I'm happy and rested and open, that's beautiful. If I'm tired and depleted and stressed or sad or going through my own hard thing, it's an energy I have to manage. And I've had to learn some energetic techniques to cut myself off from that energy so it doesn't pull at my energy when my energy is low. Taking care of myself is in understanding my unique sensitivities. And if you're highly sensitive, if you're an empath, we are very similar and we have little quirky differences. And that's what we each are tasked with figuring out. I find that when we learn about another empath's quirks, even when we don't have them ourselves, it helps give us permission to check out what our own quirks might be. Taking care of myself really is in understanding my unique sensitivities and learning through experimentation, through getting it wrong as much as getting it right over time. I've learned more and more and more, and I expect to always continue to learn how to better take care of myself. Self-care, really, for an empath, is learning how to tend to ourselves despite what is energetically hard in the world. Now, my side note on this topic, because I have focused my work over my career, and I speak through this microphone to people who have been abused, manipulated, gaslit. I want to tell you, as I share this, to be very, very, very wary of anyone in woo-woo space or professional space who claims to have some kind of special magical power, who claims to know things about you. I mean it when I teach again and again, you are your own authority figure. And maintaining authority over yourself is very important, living in this world where so many people are manipulative users. I wish that wasn't true, but that is just a truth we are living with. I am a believer that we do well to ground ourselves in that truth and work with it instead of trying to idealistically pretend that there aren't a lot of manipulative users and abusers out there. My Breakthrough Peace program kicks off on the 1st of the month. It combines my 30 Days to Peace course, a brand new online community, and a group coaching program, all in one place. I created this program as a resource to help guide you in transforming everyday stress into calm through simple daily practices that only take 5 to 15 minutes. And once you learn them, you will have them available in your pocket for a lifetime. In just 30 days, you'll build lasting inner peace muscles and master techniques you can rely on for a lifetime. Visit emotionalbadass.com/peace to learn more and choose the option that is right for you. You are your own authority figure. An empath is not necessarily a healthy, kind, lovely person just because they're an empath. I am very wary if someone tells me I'm an empath, but doesn't seem to put high value on personal responsibility, on prudence, on patience, on understanding the human ego and where their own ego might get wrapped up in their empathic abilities. If they don't have a firm grasp on the concept of being humble within their gifts, of helping people become personally powerful versus controlling them into becoming their own sheep or their minions. I have met many, many, many people who claim being an empath, who deeply use, abuse, and throw people away. It is common now. It wasn't 10 years ago, but it is common now for a very abusive person to claim that they are an empath in painting a picture of themselves that they are a very safe, trustworthy person when they are not. It is on you, it is on me, it is on all of us to take care of ourselves and not just lean in because someone says, oh, I'm an empath, or oh, I know this about you. Just being an empath who can read people doesn't make someone healthy for another person. Being an empath with high integrity to do the right thing when no one is looking and when it's very difficult. An empath having a commitment to admitting mistakes and attempting to right them with honesty. This is what fosters healthy relationships with the self as an empath and with others. Not every empath values what I just said. It is on you to evaluate the people that come into your life. You have every right to do so. Now, there are varied schools of thought on what created me being an empath. One school of thought is that it's innate. I was born with it. The other school of thought is that it's trauma. I think it's both. I very much believe that I was born with a high sensitivity. I can remember being about 4 years old and having my personality, sensing what was going on with other people, well before I was sexually abused, well before my father abandoned me to give me that abandonment trauma. Now, I had had trauma at birth. I almost died. So the argument can be made that maybe it was all trauma. Because I've worked with so many people for so many years, I've also seen many, many, many children born to highly sensitive people and empaths who are not traumatized, who have empathic abilities, who are little highly sensitive people. So I am very vested in we are born with it, and trauma also creates it or increases the sensitivity that we had before the trauma. There's also a theory that narcissists and empaths have the same abilities. I know you don't like hearing that. This theory is that we're on the same continuum, empaths and narcissists. It's just that we're at different polarities of that continuum. One side leaning into the dark, compassion less, empathy less. The other side leading into the light. Lots of compassion. Lots of care, lots of concern. Often the struggles that empaths and sensitive people have and trauma survivors have are in having over-empathy, over-consideration, codependency even, where we give way too much to that other side of the continuum that gives too little. I think this is a solid theory. This is why those of us who have tangled with narcissists and been abused by them before we knew any better, before we even knew that that was a thing, they could read us. Those charming parts can very much mimic the light in an empath. Now, I, as an empath, since I've been a very little girl, since my earliest memories, I have a physical, visceral reaction if I lie. I have a nauseous physical disgust wash over me. I can't stand it. I want to claw my own skin off. Even as a teenager, I couldn't do typical teenage lying to my parents. I'd more tell them I am not going to come home for the curfew. Even when I was breaking a rule, I was weirdly honest about it. My friends would say, why can't you just lie? And I just wasn't good at it. I couldn't do it, even when I played around with it in middle school and high school. That's my integrity. I like that about me. It's not always easy to live through that integrity, to honor it, or to see oneself in a moment where you don't hit that mark of your own integrity. A narcissist has an absolute comfort level lying and feels it as a win. They get what they want that way. They lie. They make it easy to take what they want. It works for them. They don't have empathy. Narcissism is really a low empathy disorder. It is lowered to nothing. So they can lie, and it's empathy that makes me feel badly. It's empathy that encourages me to be honest with people, to be on the up and up, to not try to play any games. It's part of why when someone has a lot of integrity, it's very, very hard to deal with a narcissist who doesn't, because it's hard to imagine that another human being is operating without that moral compass. I don't know how I would even wake up in the morning and operate without the direction of my moral compass. So it's something that's very hard for us to understand because it's outside of what makes sense to us. One of the struggles in being an empath is in possessing the emotional intelligence to hold multiple emotional states at once. I'm a believer that there are all kinds of different forms of intelligence. This is just one of them. I think it's one of the things as people we all would have done better to learn as a child, that we all have different intelligences, and it's going to be on each of us to develop those intelligences. And it's okay to not have an intelligence or a strength in every single area. Possessing the emotional intelligence to hold multiple emotional states at once sounds like a strength. We typically think of any high intelligence as a boon, right? A plus, an advantage. Intelligence, good. Dumb, bad, right? It's very, very simple the way we think about this. But when it comes to processing emotions, I find this to often be a hidden problem in highly sensitive people, particularly empaths. Now, this might seem like I'm taking a wild left turn. Just follow me for a minute. One of the great blessings I've had in my life is the gift of growing up with someone with Down syndrome. And over the course of my life, I have had a lot of interaction with people with various degrees of Downs over the course of my life. Now, I think mental health and the human population at large, I think we are missing something huge in mental health, not studying the joy of people with Down syndrome, the brilliance of what we might think of and judge as a simpler, lesser mind. And yet emotionally, they have a joy and a presence that the rest of us pine for. Anyone who has ever had the honor of spending time with someone with Downs cannot help but feel, see, sense the joy, the light in these amazing people. They are better at presence. They are better at joy than those of us with smarter, what we judge as better minds. I think their simplicity is a sort of overlooked and dismissed wisdom. I often think about how much smarter people, I'm saying that in quotes, also seem to be more unhappy people than anybody in the Downs community. This episode is about simplifying your emotional process. Maybe reframing how you define emotional intelligence or emotional process. One of my favorite modern comedic bits is hearing Shane Gillis talk about his Downs brother in his comedy. And I've heard him explain in a few different interviews that whenever he talks about his brother, whenever he makes jokes on stage, he gets pushback from people who don't get it. He's not being negative towards his brother when he makes these jokes, y'all. He's actually honoring him because by far, he will say that his Downs brother is the best person in his entire family. I know that if you are out there and you have had the blessing of a Downs person in your life, you know this with every fiber of your being. So don't come at me, internet, for saying this like this. Don't come at me like I'm saying anything negative about Down syndrome or anyone who has it. I'm saying we can learn from their exceptional way of being. When someone with Downs is sad, they're sad. If they're angry, they're angry. If they're missing someone, then they miss them and they grieve. They let both of their feet stand firmly right where they are. And if that is sadness, then it's sadness. They don't overthink and they don't question if their feelings are okay or right or too much or too little. They don't try to use their mind to think their way out of feeling something negative. If the universe happens to give something negative to feel, they just feel it. Imagine the simplicity in your life if you just felt your feelings and processed more quickly. What I see empaths doing more often than not is they don't allow themselves to put both feet into the emotion they are tasked with feeling. Instead, they put one foot in and one foot out. Now, all I want you to do today after hearing this episode, because this is a part 1, I'm going to come back next week with a part 2, is bring a curiosity to how you think and how you feel. What if you were able to decide that it was okay to think less about your feelings? Believe it or not, emotion was meant to be felt. Feelings are meant to be felt. Feelings are not meant to be thought. The sentences in your head, those are the thoughts. The words, the language, that's what's meant to be thought. The feeling is meant to be felt. What would it be like to bring simplicity instead of overthinking, overcomplication to your emotional process? Tune in next week for part 2, where we're going to break down 4 emotional empath traps so that you can learn to catch yourself before becoming ensnared in the very emotions and process that zap your life force, that drain your energy, and that keep you confused instead of confident as you move through life. I want to thank you for being here and being willing to consider difference. Consider thinking about things differently, doing things differently in your life to bring more ease and more peace. When we learn to act from more wisdom, more grounded, solid wisdom, we feel peace in mind, body, and spirit. You deserve that. I deserve that. We all deserve that. And if our smarts are getting in the way of our peace, then we can learn to be smarter than our smarts. If you are interested in doing some group coaching with me towards peace, come send my team a message on Instagram or at the contact link at the bottom of our website. Or if you're already in the Patreon, send a message there. I am an emotional badass. You are an emotional badass. And together, we are where Moxie meets mindful. Light and love. And I'll see you right here next time for part 2. Me towards peace. Come send my team a message on Instagram or at the contact link at the bottom of our website. Or if you're already in the Patreon, send a message there. I am an emotional badass. You are an emotional badass. And together, we are where Moxie meets mindful. Light and love. And I'll see you right here next time for part 2.